Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. The video right before this, and I'll link it below, was called Alluring Vanillas. And in that video, I consider that sort of a part one and this the part two. In that video, I talked about 15 really alluring vanillas that were either sexy or intriguing or interesting in some ways. Vanillas that make you want to come close to someone and sniff them and figure out what that fragrance is about. Today's video is a bit of the opposite. These are maybe some boring vanillas, those easy reach vanillas that just smell really good. They're going to give you that fantastic, very feminine vanilla vibe. And you know that they're easy reaches because you've tested them and we all enjoy them. Mass appealing fragrances. So let's talk about those easygoing, everyday vanillas. I've got, I think, 15 or so for you, and maybe even an honorable mention. We'll see how the video goes. So we're going to kick off with probably the most obvious choice. It went through an entire several years of hype here on YouTube. A lot of people have it. It shows up in many vanilla videos, and it's Kayali Vanilla 28. I will share that when I first tried this fragrance a while back, I thought it was nice, but I just wasn't quite sure why people were crazy about the fragrance. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I am like super crazy about it. I just think it's a really fantastic, easy reach vanilla. And what I particularly enjoy about this fragrance, after I went through a mini of this, you know what this is giving me? I have to tell you, straight from the nozzle, it's giving me a little bit of Gentle Fluidity Gold from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. I hadn't really associated the two, but there's some similarities there, at least the sweet aspects of them. This is a beautiful sort of kitchen baking kind of vanilla and has the addition of brown sugar and tonka bean, which give it some, I think, superb sweetness. Some folks complain that this fragrance doesn't last very long on them. I will say that it does become closer, like a scent bubble wise, it becomes closer to the skin after, an hour or two or so. But I've had decent luck with this. It's not like going to take you into the nighttime if you spray it in the morning. However, it will give you some decent longevity in the 6-ish hour range or so. This is a fragrance that's great for layering. As you know, Kayali fragrances are made to be layered with each other. And so this makes a great accompaniment to other fragrances that you want to sweeten up and give a little bit of a more feminine touch. For example, if you have a really woody fragrance or an oudy fragrance or a fragrance that just leans masculine for certain reasons, you might try pairing it with something like this just to give it a little bit of brightness and sweetness. If I didn't know any better, I would say that this has a little bit of a pear note in it, the same way that Jean-Paul Gaultier's La Belle does. I don't think people ever associate these two fragrances, but I find some similarities in this sort of hidden fruity aspect of this that's in the sweet pear direction. Likely that's from other notes in the composition, but this is a great, easy grab. You know it's going to smell good. It meshes very well with a lot of folks' skin chemistry. I haven't heard many people say that they don't like this, with the exception of perhaps that longevity issue, but definitely one of the sort of staple vanillas to add to your collection if you're looking for a nice, sweet, girly vanilla. That is an easy reach. Next is a vanilla fragrance that I really don't hear anybody talking about at all. It's Demeter's Vanilla Ice Cream. And yes, this smells exactly like vanilla ice cream, maybe even drizzled with some sort of, maybe like a caramel sauce. There is a real creaminess to this and a deep sweetness that I really enjoy. Demeter fragrances are notorious for not lasting long. If you look at these big bottle labels, it's pick me up cologne spray. So keep that in mind. This is not a fragrance that is going to take you through the entire day. This is one that you may want to spritz, say, out of the shower if you want to smell particularly cupcakey. Imagine like a cupcake with some melted ice cream on top and maybe even, like I said, some caramel sauce with that. Just a creamy, delicious, beautiful, sweet vanilla. It's funny, the reviews on this on Fragrantica, some people accuse this fragrance of smelling like any old vanilla candle. I think kind of what happens is that people know that this is an inexpensive fragrance, and so their brain kind of trains them to think that it smells cheap. I don't think this smells cheap at all. Does it smell like the most refined fragrance in the world? I don't know about that either, but it's definitely a fun vanilla fragrance. That's exactly what it's called, vanilla ice cream, and gives you that like freshly baked cupcake vibe all at the same time, a deep sweetness. And it's a fun one to spray your sheets with, spray your clothing with, right after the shower. And you have to reapply then again, probably like right before lunch if you wanted to make it an all day fragrance. But I love Demeter fragrances for both body spray and as well as spraying things around the house. For example, if you want your towels to smell sweet, you can spray them down with something like this. Very inexpensive. I think you can get this for 20 bucks. You can spray this in your hair. I mean, the possibilities are endless. But yeah, really fantastic bargain, but delicious everyday vanilla fragrance. Then I'm going to sneak one in that perhaps should be in floral videos, and maybe it will actually be in floral videos too. I recently wore this fragrance and enjoyed it just immensely. Every time I wear this, I fall more and more in love with it. It's Nishane 100 Silent Ways. It's just as much a white floral as it is a vanilla fragrance. In fact, it kind of depends on the weather and the heat, what comes out. So I wore this recently and I sprayed a lot. I sprayed a lot, friends. I wore this recently to a work conference. In fact, I traveled at the beginning part of this week and I had a heavy coat on and a sweater. Sprayed this on my skin and on the sweater. So on my sweater, I got more of the florals and maybe a touch of fruitiness. I think it's a peach note that you get here. It's just so good. However, on my skin, the vanilla had more of a prominent role. It was the lead actor. And I really enjoyed that when I went back to my jacket, my coat, and my sweater afterward. Like when I went to launder, for example, my sweater, I could still smell this. This is a fairly strong fragrance, even though it feels like it's unassuming when you first sniff it or when you spray it. There's something about it that gives you the impression it's going to be on the softer end. However, it can be deceiving in that it does carry a lot of projection and sillage. What makes this an easy fragrance is that it does have a mass appealing aspect to it. Some people, in fact, don't like that about this fragrance and feel that it's not worth the price tag. As I always say, friends, make sure that you're looking on discount sites for fragrances like this. There's no need to pay the full retail price for this when it shows up on fragrancenet.com, for example, or Fragrance by CA or one of those sites. And it's such a smooth, pleasant, no rough edges, no sharp points to this fragrance kind of smell that stays with you all day. Feminine, pretty. At the same time that it projects far, it's also a subdued smell. It's not an offensive smell in any way. I've never heard anyone talk about this not smelling good. I have heard people say that they wish it was maybe more of an interesting fragrance, which kind of boggles my mind because the more that I wear this, the more lovely I think it is. Very easy in all the right, beautiful feminine ways. Really good one. I'll go next to one that people have sort of forgotten. It had some hype back a few years ago, and then it became one of what I call YouTube's forgotten loves. And I still have it in my collection, and I enjoy it. And it's Amo by Amo Ferragamo. I do enjoy the bottle. I think it's a really neat design here. I like about this fragrance that it can be soft and subtle depending on how much you spray on. It's a bright, happy vanilla. This isn't a sexy vanilla in any way. It's maybe not like gourmand, like, wait a minute, y'all. It's not gourmand like the vanilla ice cream from Demeter. This is a sprightly, happy, jovial vanilla that has some sparkling elements in the open, maybe even a little bit fizzy from something called a Campari note. There's a little bit of tartness in here from rhubarb, but not like in Delina. Not that kind of pronounced tartness, more something that adds some character to this fragrance. So this is one of those that I put on when I want to feel happy, bright, I want to have some pep in my step. I maybe have that mindset of like skipping through the day, joyfully, joyously, jovially, all of those things. This is just a fun, happy, very girly vanilla, but like I said, on the bright side, a little bit sparkling, really cool vanilla. Actually, it's vanilla and fruity too, but I'm going to say it's vanilla for the purposes of this video. Then one of the Dua fragrances that I actually really like and I'm happy to have in my collection, and it's an original, it is not a dupe, it is called Alexandra Short, and it does have a simple white label. Yay! So excited about that. Really a linear vanilla that is complemented by a subtle caramel note, and it's musky too. So I would say it's more musky than caramel. It's not a fragrance that I would advise buying if you're into gourmands and you're wanting the caramel to be super pronounced. This is not that fragrance. However, it does have a really beautiful, soft, another happy vanilla, not fruity and tart like the Amo. This one is more on the sweeter side, but linear, simple, and a beautiful musk The musk in here, in my opinion, lends some lightness to this fragrance. It's not a heavy, dense fragrance, and that's why I think it's a great easy day choice. And, you know, would you call this affordable for 30 mil? You have to wait for the Dua sales, and you can probably get this in the $30 to $40 range. Well, I just peeked on the Dua website, and it looks like they changed the label on this, but it's sitting at $65 for the 30 mil, which is an ounce, 1 fluid ounce. But wait for the Dua sales, and you can probably get this 30 something percent off. Really worth it if you like a nice, clean, musky vanilla with, like I said, that hint of caramel and sweetness running through it. One of my favorite fragrances in my collection, and maybe it's not quite completely vanilla, but I'm gonna include it in this video, and it's Kilian. And this, I'm sorry, it's not called Kilian, y'all. It's called, hold on, let me get this long name here. I don't need a prince by my side to be a princess, by Kilian. This used to come in a round bottle that I thought was super goofy. So I'm really glad that Kilian changed up the bottles to something more simple. And I'm just going to call this Princess. I don't know why these fragrances need to have these super long, complicated names. Come on, Kilian, let's have a little chat about this naming thing you're doing. This is a really nice, easy reach on days that you want to be on the cozier side. There is a marshmallow aspect to this and a really light powderiness. It's not a powder bomb like some other fragrances. The powder in here, it's there. You're going to smell it, but it's more on the subtle side, if you will. And I find that it's a beautiful accompaniment to this subtle, girly vanilla that's in here, a very feminine smelling fragrance. There's tea. There's a little bit of like kick, like just a hint of spiciness from ginger and some citrus aspects, but those are really faint. They add a little bit of character to this fragrance, just enough to make you sniff a little bit more and go, I wonder what's that? Like, what's behind all that? And like I said, a tea note in here, but by and large, it is a sweet vanilla, not overly sweet. We're not in the gourmand range, friends. We're just in the female feminine sweet territory with, like I said, some light powdery aspects that make this, I think, a very divine, easy reach kind of fragrance. You know it's going to smell good. People are probably going to want to sniff you. You can spray a lot of this and not knock folks out. It's a very easy wear. I go next to Jovoy Fire at Will. I have Remember Me from Jovoy Paris, which I love. That's more of a tea. I think there's cardamom and some other spices in that one. And goodness, that's a really good one. But for this video, I am choosing Fire at Will, which is a really, I think, almost like a spun cotton candy vanilla for me. Some other folks have described this as being more in the gourmand territory, and they're picking up much denser, sweeter notes. For me, this is a light, airy vanilla that comes across, like I said, very spun. Like if fragrance has a texture, this is the texture of cotton candy in my mind. Now, this fragrance has gotten some hate here on YouTube recently. I'm seeing y'all's reviews on my girl Fire at Will. I don't think this deserves the hate. I think this is a really lovely vanilla that is a bit more on the, it's again, not a loud projecting vanilla. I'll say it's on the subtle side. It's not soft. It's just more subtle than maybe some of the vanillas that I talked about in that Alluring fragrance video. Like compare this to Dior Addict, for example, opposite ends of the spectrum. This is what I wish, I said this in another video, what I wish Vanille from Outremer from Anthropologie, what that smelled like. It's also what I wish Aquilina, what the heck is the name of that fragrance? Pink Sugar. It's what I wish Pink Sugar smelled more like. I have Pink Sugar and I have worn that. I wear it a lot because there's something a little bit in that one. This has none of that. This is a super pleasant, like I said, cotton candy-esque vanilla. And I will say, like I said in the February Fragrance Awards video, when I wore this to bed one night and I thought that it was done. I was like, okay, this is going to be a short-lived fragrance. I'm going to spray it on and I'm going to get a few hours out of it. Y'all, when I woke up in the morning, my bed still smelled like this. My sheets had it on there. So it did have lasting power and I smelled it faintly on myself as well. So this ain't no punk of a fragrance, okay? Even though people accuse it of not being long lasting, I wonder if people just become nose blind to it and can't smell it on themselves anymore. Yay, this is like double thumbs up for me. So this fragrance that I'm about to tell you all about, that I'm going to put you onto if you're not familiar with it. If you like a cozy, easygoing vanilla that you can wear out and wear to bed, try Kiss Me Intense from Nicolai. Yes. Oh, let me say, you need to like almond. There's definitely a powdery almond thing here, almost in the marshmallowy, soft direction. This reminds me very much of cotton balls, like the consistency of a cotton ball. The softness of it is what the scent texture of this is like. Ooh, this is good. And it has some florals. It's kind of like a combination of some warm tropical florals, like really lightly, and the colder, like iris nature of those notes that give you that makeup feel. If you smash those together, throw in some almonds and some powder and a little bit of a marshmallow aspect, here you go. It's a fairly subtle fragrance in that it is not far projecting, but it will last you a decent amount of time. For me, it just gets really soft on me. I wish it was a little bit more projecting, but I will say this is an easy reach for that powdery, sweet, almondy, vanilla-esque kind of smell. Really, really, really a good one. Maybe this next one has no business being in a vanilla video either, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. And it may show up in some other videos as well. Electimuss Mercurial Cashmere. I really enjoy this fragrance quite a lot. I would say that this fragrance gives me a similar powdery nuance that Kilian does. These could be cousins, where this one is a little bit more of the party girl, and this one is a little bit more of the shyer introverted one. The reason that this is a little bit more party-esque, it's got some pretty florals and some pretty citrus to accompany the powdery vanilla aspect. So it has some brightness to it. It has a little bit of zhuzh that would have some presence in a party type of setting. Not that I would wear this to a party. In fact, this is the Everyday Vanillas video, so let's stick to that. It's an easy reach where you know you're going to smell good, and this could work across seasons. Beautiful in the winter as a cozy sweater, weather kind of fragrance, as well as being appropriate for, I would say, even the depths of summer. Like even on hot days, something like this could hold its own and not overpower people because it has a delicateness to it, at the same time having enough presence to hold its own with those florals and the citrus aspects as well. But by and large, this is a sweet, powdery vanilla to me that I just think is really a fun one. If you haven't tried this, see if you can get a sample of it and see what you think. I've talked about this next one quite a bit recently in some videos like the Luxe for Less video and a few others, and so I won't go on and on, but Joop, which I think is very much like a hidden gem type of a fragrance. Vanilla, amber, a little bit of woodiness, and I also get some lovely aldehydes, like a nice, clean, luxurious soapiness out of here. So, and it's affordable. This is a fragrance that I think you can find under $30 on gray market sites, and quite the gem. This is lovely. See if you can add this to your collection. If you're into vanillas, you're likely not going to go wrong with this. And it's an easy reach. A little bit more on the sophisticated end for this video, but it does have a very everyday aspect to it because of the soapy and woody aspects of this. But definitely one of the most delightful vanillas in my collection. This one belonged in the Alluring Vanillas video too, now that I think about it. But we're going to go ahead and talk about Armani Code Absolu. This is the femme version. There's a male version as well, so don't confuse them. The women's version comes in the longer, sleeker bottle. Beautiful vanilla, tuberose, tonka bean fragrance, so it's sweet. There is a little bit of sultriness. Perhaps this one really belonged in the Alluring Vanilla video, but I like to wear this on easy reach days, and I'm talking about jeans and your chunky sweater. You could probably wear this in the spring with a beautiful white t-shirt too. All of the above. I mean, you can wear fragrances whenever. I do find this to be one of the more feminine fragrances of the ones that I'm sharing with you in this, well, let me put that a different way, more like a grown-up feminine fragrance. Some of the other fragrances that I've shared could be considered youthful, like Fire at Will has some youthful aspects to it. Amo is certainly a brighter, more youthful type of fragrance. This one is a little bit more on the serious end for an easy reach fragrance video, but I do still find it comforting, easy. I know it's always going to smell good on me, and it has some citrusy aspects that give it just a hint of brightness way in the background, almost like the original Armani Code. Do y'all remember that the Armani Code bottle that I recently purchased went crashing to the floor in my bathroom and died a really sad, tragic death. I still haven't gotten over that, but I'm gonna get a new bottle of that too. Anyway, this is a little bit of a more sultry sister to Armani Code, but still a rather easygoing fragrance in that it doesn't have an imposing presence. It's a little bit softer and more subtle, even though it's highly feminine and grown. Armani Code Absolu. So you've heard me really sort of question this next fragrance. And then recently, and I think it was in the February Fragrance Awards video also that I mentioned, this fragrance really grew on me recently because I thought that I might declutter it. And it's Ellis Brooklyn Vanilla Milk. When I first got this, the opening of this had this gas-like thing that I just, whoa, it was a little much for me. It wasn't quite what I was expecting. But and see, I'm smelling that again. Anyway, I wore it in February and I have worn it again recently. And so maybe this is one that plays like abracadabra tricks. One day it smells a little gassy. And then the other day it smells like exactly what it says. Well, maybe not quite vanilla milk. What I describe this fragrance as is if you like Breyers ice cream, and it has to be Breyers because Breyers has the real ingredients, y'all. It doesn't have any of the fake phony stuff. If you like Breyers ice cream and you get the real vanilla bean stuff, you know, that ice cream, when it melts down, what melted, real delicious vanilla ice cream smells like, that's what you get out of this. But the melted version, not fresh out of the container, y'all, the melted version. Anyway, as I've worn this recently, the few times I've worn it, it's given me a lot more of that. And I've gotten none of the gas note, except here when I smell it from the nozzle, I still get like a little hint of that, but that's all right. This one grew on me, and it is officially now in my easy reach fragrances. One that I would not hesitate to reach for if I wanted to smell easy, breezy, vanilla milk-y. Boom. Okay, y'all are going to think I'm crazy for including this fragrance in an easy reach video. And again, maybe it doesn't belong in a vanilla video, but for me, it is like a vanilla and amber and sandalwood fragrance. It's called Seta from Moresque. I've heard people describe this different ways. For a lot of the reviewers, I'm just sharing this with y'all because my experience is different. And so if you're listening to me for my review, just know that this is my experience with it. Other people describe this as a fairly substantial amber fragrance. For me, it is heavier on the vanilla and some of that sandalwood, and it does have some resinous aspects, myrrh, and I forget what else, some other sort of resinous touches in this fragrance. I find this to be a nice, soft fragrance on me. Granted, I have not sprayed a ton the times that I've worn this, and it gives me a nice, intimate scent bubble. I do enjoy this a lot. I think it's a really, really pretty, easygoing, mostly vanilla fragrance, like I said, with those other aspects in it that accompany the vanilla and round it out. But to me, I couldn't put this in the alluring vanilla category because I just don't read it that way. I read this a little bit of an easier vanilla that is maybe not quite every single day, but easy reach for the times that you want it to have an everyday easy reach +1. Like a touch elevated, but not quite in like Shalimar territory. You know what I mean? You didn't want to get quite that deep and sexy and alluring. This is sort of a toned down version for that everyday wear. That's how I would describe this. A fragrance that I no longer have in my collection. I actually sold this one only because I would reach for some of these other ones that I'm talking about more, but it's still really a nice fragrance and I would advise it if you like a vanilla that has a little bit of a spicy kick and is super easygoing, and that's Divine Vanille from Essential Parfums. This is nice. It's a pleasant vanilla. I found this to be a softer one. Some other people think that it's loud. So just keep that in mind. Some fragrances that other people think are loud, I tend to think are a little bit softer or more intimate than others might describe. Anyway, this is a nice, what I consider to be a clean, linear vanilla, but it has some spicy aspects from cinnamon and from pepper and maybe some other spices in there. So it has a little bit of a kick to it that makes it not quite the most boring vanilla. Gives it a little bit of an interesting twist, but the vanilla overall as a composition is simple enough that you can wear every day with no problem to the office, to run errands, to the doctor's office, all of that. And what I particularly like is that it's a really nicely made fragrance for fairly inexpensive. Nice substantial bottle from a renowned perfumer, and it's under $100 for a full bottle. So that's an interesting one if you're the type of person that really wants to collect, say, for example, niche only, but you need a little bit more of an affordable price point. Check out Divine Vanille. And so I'll talk about an honorable mention and then what I think is the most easy reach vanilla probably in my entire collection. The honorable mention is Notee Vanille from Micallef. I did end up getting Notee Vanille Nectar. I purchased that one, and it's as much other things as it is a vanilla fragrance. So maybe I'll talk about that in another video. But Notee Vanille, it's not one that I have felt compelled to purchase, but I remember it, and I remember enjoying sampling it a lot. I just at the moment didn't want to add it to the collection of vanillas that I do have, but because I have others that kind of vibe the same. A lot of people describe Notee Vanille as being a boozy vanilla. For me, it was a little bit more of a clean vanilla. I did get a little bit of depth from a boozy factor, but I remember about Notee Vanille that it was super pleasant as smelling like a clean, almost spa-like vanilla to me. I don't know what happened to me the day that I sampled it, you all, but I remember thinking that. I remember thinking that it had some citrus that I thought brightened up the fragrance. And I remember thinking that it had aspects of it that reminded me of clean spa smell, along with some hints of that booziness that other people describe. A really, really nice vanilla that definitely deserves a mention as an everyday, easy reach kind of a vanilla fragrance where you're going to smell a little bit more elevated. That's the day that you shined up your leather shoes. Do we shine up leather shoes anymore? I still do. Shined up your leather shoes and made sure that you actually ironed your jeans, even though it was a casual day. It's that kind of a day where you would wear that fragrance with your little pearls, even though you have on a little bit of a t-shirt. And maybe you even like popped your collar on your crisp white shirt, although it was a casual day. Notee Vanille. Okay, and then I think this fragrance is discontinued, but we say that sometimes on YouTube and we don't know what we're talking about. So I just heard that it's discontinued. Don't take my word for it. And I'm sure those of you out there that know, y'all drop it in the comments. I'm sure you will do that. Please do that. But you can still find it on the gray market, even if it is discontinued. That's certainly where I purchased mine. And it is Manifesto by Yves Saint Laurent, YSL. So when I first got this one, it was at a moment in my life when I was really into loud, leathery, bombs of fragrances, beast mode. I wanted them in my face, loud, proud, and in charge. And I smelled this when I got it and thought, I don't know if this is me. And I'm so glad that I didn't give up on it. So here's what I have to say for those of you in the audience that are maybe newer to the fragrance collecting world. Give things a try. Give yourself time to understand your own taste, and give yourself permission to fall in and out of love with fragrance types. It's totally okay. You might think you're, for example, a complete gourmand person and go crazy buying all of the gourmands in all of the world. And then 6 months later go, I think I'm done with the gourmand phrase. And now I want to get into florals, or I want to get into citrus, or whatever. So give yourself permission to do that and move in and out of likes with olfactory types. I'm going to step off of my little soapbox and tell you all about this fragrance. And the reason that I think it's such a lovely, easy reach, it is a subtle, very subtle vanilla. There are touches of greenness to this that I think are nicely balanced by some floral aspects and maybe even woody aspects. So it's very much overall as a composition, what I would consider to be a clean vanilla. It's simple on the skin. It has brightness, like something that you might put on after a shower to feel uplifted and fresh, like a fresh vanilla. And it has a tiny bit of depth. This is not a fragrance that you're going to sniff and think is super complicated at all. In fact, quite the opposite. It's very, very simple overall in its nature. But there are hints of complexity if you give this a minute to settle. And if you really take sort of that long, deep breath, you'll see the florals, the greenness, and the woodiness in the far background, sort of as supporting actors to what is otherwise a thin, almost watery feeling scent, like in terms of the texture of this. And I think that's what makes it so appealing. You can completely overspray this fragrance head to toe and still just smell a little bit like angelic and soft and sweet and clean and absolutely not offensive. No one anywhere in the world is going to be offended by Manifesto. So in that way, this is the quintessential everyday vanilla, at least for my collection. That, folks, is my selection for you all. I probably could have talked about 15 or 20 more, but let me cap it at that. I would love to hear from you. What is your favorite easy reach vanilla? Like when you close your eyes and think, I'm just going to grab that one fragrance and I know it's going to do me right. It's going to smell good. I'm not going to irritate anybody with my fragrance. What is that for you? Share it in the comments so that we can learn from you and get ideas from each other. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you, and may you have a blessed day. See you in the next video. Take care, friends.